11th, and I have a wonderful speaker who will be taking you through human-centered quality, empathy, and communication in patient safety. I must also remind you that registration are open for this IPSC in Bangalore. So online registration is happening. You can come and take the spot registration and witness the India's, I think, subcontinent biggest patient safety conference, where you'll get where you able to get interaction with the speakers from national and outside India. So in the morning, I was in the conclave where we're talking about how much humans, how much technology. What is that mix? Because I think after COVID, people are moving away from hospitals. COVID has taught us the technology integration, and there is something known as flipped care. So flipped care say in average time when a patient interact with a clinician in the year is less than 7 hours, and rest 600 hours he is on the phone. So that kind of healthcare we are witnessing in this era. So that is more important. And I feel, this webinar is very, very important in the series. We'll talk about human-centered quality. I think when healthcare professionals are not communicating effectively, patient safety is at risk for several reasons, maybe lack of critical information, misinterpretation of information, unclear orders over phones, you overlook changes in the status, and lack of communication create a situation where some of the medical error can happen. So I think empathy these days is very, very important while communicating to the patient. And I always feel the empathy is the ability to understand and share the feeling with another. I think that is a theme for this webinar. And I have Dr. Jyoti Kalra with me. She's a director of nursing with IH Healthcare India, and she's a chairperson with research committee ANEI and Tamil Nadu state official member. She had just completed NABH digital healthcare assessor training course, and she is a healthcare excellence assessor on Bariatric excellence framework. She's an alumni of CMC Vellore and a professional journey of 36 years. Many awards, many honor, and without coming between me and this conclave, I request Dr. Jyoti, please come and take us through human-centered quality.
Um, Thank you, Dr. Neeraj. That was a wonderful opening for the day. And as you said, this is going to be the last, and we wanted to make our best to make this particular webinar very interesting. Good afternoon to everyone, and those who are not from different zones, good morning and good evening. It's really wonderful for me to be here to speak about human-centered quality, empathy, communication in patient safety. This is a very close to my heart topic, and I'm very happy that I'm part of this presentation. Thanks to Apollo for making very remarkable imprint every year, year after year, in endorsing patient safety across the globe. I would like to start with few points put in our mind. The related concepts of empathy, compassion, and person-centered communication in healthcare have been shown to have positive influence on quality of care, patient experience, and clinical outcomes, as well as provider satisfaction. Not only that, resilience to stress and burnout. So this is like 360-degree benefit if we focus on the empathy and communication. Empathy is seen with the eyes of another, listen with ears of another, and feel with the heart of another. And when you talk about empathy, we can always relate us. Communication and empathy travels together. Right from the patient appears in the outpatient, I would say even before that, when they call in to fix an appointment, and it goes long way every step, and when the patient exit. So the point every time that the educators or the counselors or probably the healthcare professionals and every single non-clinical members come in contact, They are expected. Researchers are very clearly endorsing that malpractice claim is because of poor communication. This is one of the third of the healthcare factor. And this is a study done in 3 of the NHS trusts. It's only a sample. I was trying to find out such studies across India. Probably I didn't do enough homework or there are no enough studies. But this says very clearly 30% is due to malpractice claim and 1,744 deaths. And if you see the cost, see the huge amount of cost that is being spent on because of poor communication. And it has been estimated that 27% of medical practice is the result of communication failure. So this is a basic reason why actually this particular webinar topic is driving us to reflect and also to see what best we could contribute as healthcare professionals, doctors, nurses, paramedicals, and also non-clinical team. Researchers also say that cause of decline in empathy is because of certain factors. I'm not sure whether as healthcare providers and leaders, we give attention to all of these so that this is part of induction and it takes employees forward every month after month to see that they are able to overcome this and they are able to demonstrate empathy in their communication and interaction with the patient. Growing concern about declining level of empathy among healthcare providers is happening, and it is a truth that people perceive it. Partly related to increased workload, burnout, and empathetic distress fatigue. And you can see the various reasons here, and these are self-explanatory. And out of all these, the most important one that we could relate are work-life balance, emotional exhaustion, lack of role modeling. So it calls upon all us as leaders to take few steps, a small baby steps. Some have taken baby steps already, but you are expected to take larger steps, big steps to move forward so that we create an environment. JCI NABH accreditation endorses very clearly. There are standards, there are objective elements very specific to both communication and empathy. These are very familiar to all of you because most of the hospitals are using these tools. In our setting, we also tried a tool called ISET, which is a very different kind of a tool. You know, in the study, what we found was the last bit was closed with this tool. The nurse or the doctor who's handing over to the next person in the next shift do not normally go near the patient and introduce that I'm going on and off, so I'll not be seeing you. Now the next person who is going to take care of you is so and so. And this person will be taking care of you all through the next shift. And saying bye to the patient. Normally we meet when the patient comes. When we sign off, this is what I could see in our organization. And we had put a very clear understanding that signing off bye-bye to patients is very important. In the busy routine of clinical care of our patients, we forget the element of empathy. Each patient is unique, and empathy is a medicine the world needs. And I call it as medicine because it is a daily dose. You cannot take medicine and then wait for another 1 month it would act. No, it is a daily dose. It's like a daily dose. It has to be happening at every touch point with the patients. Patients are different. Patients are different type of patients come to us. Some are overbearing family. Some are self-diagnosis. Some are sensitively natural. What kind of patients are we dealing with is the first understanding we must have. Because if we don't customize our communication, if we don't plan our connection with the patients, we cannot also incorporate empathy into it. But however, empathy is a universal language. It is an universal language and it cannot be hidden. It cannot be dramatized because people will feel it and it has to be coming out naturally and it has to be correlating with the patient type. And things they are actually needing in the healthcare is a touch. What is the touch? It is not the physical touch. It's more than the physical touch. That touch, I would call it as empathy. Now, why empathy is important? What can you see here? What you see here is little, but what you don't see is many. And this is how like empathy works in our system. Poor communication, if you see the mean, poor nurse communication is 27%. Researchers are saying, I'm not telling this. 15% more safety events. So here you say that doctors don't communicate. The communication is poor. The things that we see openly are body language, behaviors, expression, and you can also see the interaction. But certain things in empathy which cannot be seen, but will mask our expression and our body language. As we say, face is index of a mind. It is very important that we also prepare our inner self to become empathized. Empathy goes beyond medical knowledge and technical skill. It is the ability to understand and share the feelings and experiences of patient, fostering a deep connection between healthcare providers and those there in their care. I would like to share a short video here.
Yeah. Jyoti, if you can remove your cursor from the screen, people can see your slide fully.
This one. Sorry. 1 minute. Just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. These are technical issues that.
Yeah.
Just give me a minute. I'm sorry, audience. You know, when we go on screen, please excuse me. Yeah.
Therefore, we are talking about human-centered quality.
Yes. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Just give me some time because see, when we are able to, when we connect the videos, we are supposed to do something which I have missed. Probably the factor of emotion comes here, I guess. Just a minute. I am supposed to. I'm supposed to connect the audio in it, but
audio,
I don't know whether you are able to hear.
And just drag your bar just on the top of it.
That I'm not able to do.
We can hear your video. We can hear the voice in the video.
Okay, but how do I remove that top part? I'm not able to remove it.
Just drag it up through your mouse. Yeah, just drag it up.
Yeah, I have done it. Is it okay?
A bit more.
Bit more I couldn't do beyond this.
Okay.
Okay, I think this is still better.
I think it's okay.
Yeah, my system is not working.
There is no problem. You can start the video.
She's a trainee nurse, and she's about to start her first day of work at IHH's newest hospital in Future Land. She's quite the smart one, completing her nursing degree at the top of her class with flying colors, no less. But she might have met her match, Alden, the world's most advanced nurse droid. Alden is state-of-the-art and top-of-the-line, powered by IHH's very own patented AI technology, Nurse GPT-10. He provides 24/7 support to our team of nurses as they go about caring for patients. After learning about Alden and how to input commands, the quick-thinking Natalie has an idea. Instead of having Alden assist her, she reckons he can take over some of her patient care duties completely. Let's see how that works out. First thing on the list for Natalie today is helping a patient with his medication. Seems simple enough for an advanced machine like Eldon. But wait, the patient is fast asleep and unaware that Eldon is trying to give him the pills. Stop! That's not how it's done. Natalie commands Eldon to get the medication again, and this time, she herself gives them to the patient the right way. Next, Natalie has to help a patient with this discharge process. She immediately thinks of Eldon's innate ability to store and process massive amounts of data in split seconds. This should be a breeze for Eldon. Let's give it another try. Eldon runs through the steps with the patient matter-of-factly and without empathy, even bluntly disclosing that his condition is terminal, and then walks away. Seeing the patient in distress, Natalie rushes over, holds his hand, and tries to calm him down. Almost on the brink of giving up, Natalie checks her next task. This time, she is to help a patient with a foot injury get back to his ward. Seeing that the patient is recovering well and in good spirits, Natalie decides to give Eldon one more chance. What can possibly go wrong, she thinks. Eldon marches towards the wheelchair-bound patient. The patient is oblivious to Eldon's presence and is understandably spooked when Eldon pushes him forcefully towards the room. Once again, it's up to Natalie to save the day. Natalie realizes that despite Eldon being state-of-the-art and high-tech, he cannot replace the most important work that we do. That is, take care of our patients with empathy and a human touch. This is what makes our nurses special. This is Natalie, one day wiser, and she's going to be a great nurse.
So being wiser a day is with empathy and communication. It is very important for us to understand that this particular video clearly says that AI cannot take over human, and humans are more valued when they have communication and empathy embedded into it. Now, when you say empathy, there are a few things that we have to understand. It is a competency. Many people don't see it as a competency, and many of the healthcare educationists are not able to translate it at the bedside by teaching our students, the healthcare students, may it be doctors, nurses, how do you develop empathy? It is not innate in a person, but it can be developed. So we could do it at the time when we break a bad news, explain poor prognosis, preparing end-of-life care, or when a patient is waiting for organ donation, or when the patient is ready for organ donation. And what do we do? These are the steps. Very important. This spikes step is one of the important steps which has to be integrated in the induction and the trainees move forward in application. There are a few examples. You could see in the first example, there is a verification and a clarification of the order and the instruction when a doctor gives. This is done by the nurse. There is another example which says, pay close attention to patients' concern, questions, and feedback. Here, actively involving them in decision-making fosters trust and improves patient outcome. Now, without empathy and without communication, we can't do that. There is another example which talks about open communication and briefing and debriefing, which is very critical, especially when we communicate and empathize between the teams, the doctors and the paramedics. When we team up, it is very important between us. We have a clear communication and empathy matters a lot. Next, another example I would like to present here is recognized and respectful cultural diversity, where now we have patients coming from all over the world to have a telemedicine. India is known for it, and telehealth care is a very important aspect. And we also have international tourism, and this is one another aspect, how we empathize. The way we empathize with some of the patients will be different from How do we empathize with other? It is because the body language, the mannerism, the communication, the tone, and the approach will be perceived. I think my next speaker will be speaking about it, will be perceived rightly or wrongly, even though our intention is very right. This actually talks about how do we promote a culture. It is a culture. It is not something like a task or a job. So how do we build in a culture? I'm not going to go into everything of it, but I would like to stress upon one aspect in this, which is like empathy is a cornerstone of compassionate and patient-centered care, which drives service excellence. These approaches may result maybe to moderate to high level of performance. It will also give a better clinical outcome, and this will also increase the NPS score of any organization. Now, among all, what I would like to emphasize is the empowered to empathize. Empowered to empathize. It's a beautiful phrase. It has a lot of in-depth meaning. You need to have courage to empathize. You need to have a lot of understanding to empathize, and for which we have to empower our team. How do we relate and react to things that are happening in the hospital? When we talk about empathy, patients report that empathy and compassion are just as important as training and experience when it comes to choosing a profession. So if you have 2 or 3 nurses, 2 or 3 doctors, patient would prefer the doctor or a nurse who's more compassionate and able to communicate. Now, when you talk about the empower to empathize is a healthcare within the healthcare involves healthcare professionals actively cultivating and expressing empathy in their interaction with patient. And this comes as an expression, and we need to understand that there is a way to learn and way to transmit this, or way to express this or demonstrate this in our activity. Active listening, it's a competency. And we need to see the communication skill. There are various components in it. So we should be efficient. Basically, the language that we give and the body language that we show, both verbal and non-verbal. Patient education is another scope of area where we are able to make and understand. Like, we just don't give things before giving medicine, after giving medicine. We keep talking to patients, explaining them, educating them, making them understand. Many times we say that I have told so many times, but the patient did not listen to me. Patient just got out of the bed and patient fell. But we never realized whether what we deliver reaches the patient. So there is an approach that is required. Then we need to also see self-reflection is another aspect. So if we have all these components inbuilt as a strategy and a methodology to train professionals, they will be able to become more empathetic, and also empowering them to empathize. For example, a nurse who is working in the operation theater should understand that a nurse who is preparing a patient in the ward and transferring a patient to OT did not have enough time because the patient stepped in just 15 minutes before. And 15 minutes is not enough for the nurse to prepare. Doctor is in the theater, the nurse in the ward is not able to be empathetical. She's not able to communicate to the patient saying that the doctor is attending to very important surgery. So it is very important for us to wait. I am sure the problem that you're facing does not require urgent attention of a doctor. We are all there to take care of you. However, the doctors will come. So we need to actually understand that it is important for us to follow this. Redesigning empathy. How do you redesign empathy? Redesigning empathy is one very important aspect. I would like to narrate a very short story briefly to you. There was a patient, Mr. B, who was on ECMO during the COVID time. And I can very well relate how I personally had an empathetic approach and how it helped me to have a great gratification in my professional experience. After becoming a nursing director, after becoming a group head, one single interaction that I had encountered with this patient gave me a deep sense of satisfaction, more than a promotion, more than the title, and more than anything. And what happened here is the patient was on ECMO. The patient did not do well. Doctors have told this is the last time, we could not do much, and the patient's relatives were very upset. The daughter and the mother were totally upset and down, and they were not even wanting to go into and talk to the father or the husband. So what happened? I took help of a doctor, Dr. Subra, who's ID specialist. So we both sat and we thought something we have to do for this patient because he has been with us for long. And he came with 70% lung damage, and we tried all our best, and we couldn't do anything for this patient. But thanks to God, the patient was conscious. He was conscious while he was on ECMO. And so what we did was we spoke to the relatives, the mother and the daughter. So the wife and the daughter, when we spoke, what came to my mind was, I just held the hand and I told, do you want to have a last one day with your dad? I asked the wife, do you want a dating with your husband? Because I don't know whether you will be able to have another day. And this is a last opportunity for you. You want to give him a very good bye-bye and make him happy, then you could do it. If not, you can still decide whatever you want to do. That was a wonderful one day, dating with dad and dating with husband, both of them. So we set them aside into a room in the ICU. The doctors, nurses came, they took a lot of photos, memories with the patient. The patient was able to express, his eye expression was very good. So he wanted coconut water. So what all he liked, they ordered from the canteen. Sip by sip he had, and some, in Chennai, coffee is very special. So filter coffee was ordered. He tasted, because they are from Brahmin background. So he had the filter coffee, totally enjoyed. And that evening, with deep satisfaction, both the wife and the daughter, they left, leaving the patient with confidence in her hand. Early morning, patient had the last breath, and that was the end. Both the wife and the daughter came back to us for care. They invited us for her marriage. It was a wonderful experience. So what I say here is, we need not do that. We did it out of our own interest. So every single individual think that what they could do one step forward, they can make them a better human being and also a better professionals tomorrow. This is another one. It is a perfect empathy with the staff. This is me, and this is one of my nurses in the Sweet Nothing rounds. Normally, when leaders go on rounds, nurses feel very scared. But I like nurses welcoming nursing leaders when they come on rounds. And for them to do that, only empathetic approach and communication matters. And during the COVID time, I know every single hospital did their best, and we also did our best, like give them a power break. This power break made nurses so happy, comfortable. The just culture, which most of you follow, is one of the best example for empathetic approach with our colleagues and our team. And when we do this, what happened is we create a ripple. So a happy team makes happy patients. So they actually learn how to be empathetical from us, and they translate it to the people around them. May it be the colleagues, those who are working, a nurse to the pharmacist, a pharmacist to the physiotherapist, a physiotherapist to the doctor. So it makes a ripple around. And healthcare communication and empathy, I can say, should be the pivotal point that we have to focus in this era of AI, because this is the most needed hour. And I thank Apollo for bringing out this pre-conference to unfold this particular theme and make every single individual reflect, are they empathetical? If this happens in any or all of our minds every day, quality care will improve, satisfaction will increase, patient complaints will be actually going up, and we can assure very confidently. Thank you very much. The biggest communication problem is we do not listen to understand. many times we listen to it. Thank you so much. And over to the moderator.
Thank you very much. It was wonderful. Your video was very sweet. I think most of the people should see this video and they should understand what to be done. I think this is very, very important. Now we have a second great speaker, Mr. Amit, and he is responsible for driving the employee well-being initiative and grievance management across Aster India. He come with the 17 year of experience in learning and development. He's trained to train the trainer for the Posh Act, and he's also a life coach, mindfulness coach, meditation trainer, and neuro linguistic programming. He's a mechanical engineer and he's completed his MMS from marketing, and he's from my alma mater, that is Tata Institute of Social Sciences, where he did his EPG Charan. And prior to his Aster DM Healthcare, he was working in SCG and CRISIL, and he has also led organization for accreditation program. So let me introduce to you Mr. Meet, whose interests are in human psychology and organization behavior. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Neeraj, for that wonderful introduction. Now, the earlier speaker spoke about empathy and the importance of communication. We also looked at the various models. Now, often what happens is most of us, we do understand what the topic is all about. However, at times the problem is in terms of what might go wrong. So common sense often at times helps us. Often we understand that when patients come to the organization, their family member is unwell, patient might be in stress, family members are in stress, although one person is hospitalized, but the entire family is under stress. Now, in such situations, how essentially each one of us, we being in part of the organization or the hospital, how well we are able to treat the patient, that's important. Doctors are there, nursing staff members are there, front office, pharmacy, everybody is there. But how essentially we are able to bring about a positive change and to what extent they are able to experience that positive change matters the most. And this is where communication comes into play. Now, whatever I'm saying, I'll request all the participants to be active on the chat box because you can comment, you can also respond to the activity that we're going to do. And essentially, if you guys don't respond in the chat box, that means that my communication is ineffective. And also, that would mean that people are not empathetic towards what I'm saying. Now, moving on, look at this particular slide and tell me, what do you see? And I would request everyone to use the chat box. You can message in the chat box what exactly you all are able to see. What do you see? People can participate.
We can see your screen.
You have to upload your slides.
Okay, my presentation is not visible.
No, not yet.
No.
Okay, sorry.
What I was thinking, Amit, you are asking us whether we are there or not. So,
So is it visible now?
yes, it is there now.
Okay. So I thought the transition took place. So I was saying that all the people who are there on this particular call, I would request everyone to participate in this particular discussion because if people don't really participate, that would mean my communication is ineffective. And also that would mean that people are not empathetic towards what we are discussing. So as you can see on the slide, can anybody please put it in the chat box? What exactly do you see? What do you see? All the ones who are there in this particular meeting, you can use the chat box, you can message. The ones who can turn on your video cameras, you can turn it on. So what essentially do you see? So some people might say that there is an old lady, others might say there is a young lady who is looking towards the other side, and some people might say probably there is a bird, there is a parrot, or there's an eagle. Now whatever a person might say in terms of what they feel, often at times what might happen is the reality might be different. So in this particular image, there are two images actually. One is an old lady and there is an young lady. Now, when we look at this particular image, the important point is each one of us as individuals, when we look at a particular situation, we might be partially correct or we might be 100% correct at times, possible. However, unless we understand the entire perception about that situation or perspective about that situation, it's very difficult to come to a particular conclusion. And that's precisely when patients come to the hospital. They expect a certain standard, they expect excellence, they expect cost of treatment should be less, they expect that people should be supportive, and they expect all the good things which should happen for their near and dear one, because for them that's the first time or maybe the follow-up meetings that they're having with the doctors. But for our employees, it would be something that they do day in day out. So every time a patient would come to the hospital, often they would go through multiple touch points. Now, security being the first touch point and also the last touch point. At each and every phase wherein a patient, the family members, the attendants would go within the hospital, how their experience happens, or at that particular stage, how they feel about their experience while interacting with the people matters a lot. So let's say at the initial phase wherein they are trying to park their vehicle in the parking area, and let's assume that the security guy shouts at them because the family members they have parked their vehicle in an inappropriate way. So that negative experience would always be there with them. So let's say the family members come to the premises and then they go to the front office area, and let's assume that the front office staff members they were not very attentive. They were busy with their phone, WhatsApping or chit chatting with fellow colleagues, and again that experience would be negative. So likewise, at each and every touch point when the family members would be there within the hospital, their experience, be it in terms of positive experience, be it in terms of negative experience, would create a greater impact. And essentially often because of that, people try to take first opinion, then they have second opinion. These days people go for third and fourth opinion, especially in chronic cases like cancer and other diseases. So what matters is at each and every touch point, if our employees, if all of us, we are able to create that positive impact to the patient in terms of how we talk, how we speak, how we walk around, our body language. That's one of the most important component. Often people talk about verbal communication, but at times it's the non-verbal communication that creates a major impact. You may not be interacting with the patient, but you might be seated in a certain way which might be inappropriate, and that might come across in a very casual way. So all these experiences lead to something called as moment of truth. And moment of truth is basically that moment every patient, or let's say a buyer who goes to buy a particular product in the market, will always go through, wherein they are deciding about whether to buy the product or whether not to buy the product. Similarly, when patients and family members, when they come to the hospital, if all their experiences across the touch points, they are positive, they'll be highly inclined to be there in the hospital because they would be assured that yes, out here there are people who care for them. However, let's say if their experience is on the negative side, and that's when what essentially would happen is patients and the family members might go for multiple rounds of taking the opinion. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to understand what essentially we mean by empathy. Now, empathy is basically to understand the feelings of another person. At the same time, you need to understand your own feeling, which is essentially, let's say, emotional intelligence. However, when you put an action towards what you want to do, that becomes compassion. So the usual dilemma with most of the employees who work within the organization is whether it is empathy, whether it is sympathy, or whether it is apathy. Now, there's a difference between all the three words. Empathy essentially talks about when you want to help someone, when you understand the person's situation and you're willing to do whatever you can do at that particular point of time. So, I would like to give an example out here. Let's say today, while going home, you witness a particular incident that has happened on the road. Let's say there is an accident, and you see that the biker is on the ground and people are rushing towards him to help. However, you are there in your car, or maybe you're also driving back home, and you happen to see this particular situation. Let's say you feel saddened by what has happened. You want to go and help the person. You park your vehicle, you go and arrange for, let's say, auto, or you take that particular person to the nearest hospital. So essentially, that would be empathy because you felt sorry for the person what has happened at that particular point of time, and you wanted to help, and you did anything and everything that you could do at that particular point of time. However, let's say look at the second situation wherein essentially it would be sympathy. You saw the incident, you felt bad, but apart from that, you did nothing. You probably wish or prayed saying that God give hope to the family members. Let everything be nice. Let everything be good about that particular situation to that particular person. But apart from that, you're not doing anything. You're not stepping out of your vehicle to help the other person. So essentially, that would be sympathy to a greater extent. And the third situation, which is apathy, often what happens is we see something that's happening, maybe within the unit, or let's say in a particular department, or it might happen somewhere outside, and we are least bothered about that situation. So in a way, we are acting indifferent, and that's where the problem lies. So especially when patients come to us, they don't come to the hospital for enjoyment. They come to the hospital to get their family member treated. And when the person is there within the hospital, it's very important and imperative that all the employees are there to look after the patient. Because if the patient has a positive experience, that will impact the entire family. Now, when we talk about empathy and sympathy, the greater preference would be for empathy. However, when people at workplace, when they try to differentiate between the two, often they get confused because they feel that they have been doing what they were supposed to do in terms of work, and that's where the problem lies. People are focusing on the process part rather than the human-centered approach. Human-centered approach is also termed as people-centered care. So at each and every stage, try and understand from the other person's perspective what they would require. And this is where the important thing lies in terms of managing our emotions. Now, all of us, we are familiar with, we have different types of emotions. Often people say there are 8 to 9 emotions, and of those, these are the most common ones. Now, what I would request everyone who is there on this particular call, what you all can do is, I'll be reading out one of the emotion, and you all can express that particular emotion on your face in terms of how you would feel. So if I say anger, it would be really good if the participants who are attending this call, you can really bring about that particular expression on your face, anger. You can also look at being fearful. So often when people are afraid of something, their pupils are dilated and they are scared, and that you can notice from their face or facial expressions. People who are sad, they tend to look downwards, and then they are probably thinking about something, maybe loss of some family member, and they probably might be thinking about the world is coming to an end. So in such cases, people tend to look down. And people who are always joyful, people who are always happy, cheerful, they'll always be smiling. So smiling, or to have a smile on your face, that the biggest thing that each and every employee can do, especially when you're there within the hospital. Because unlike other industries, other sectors wherein people work for different products and services, healthcare is a different sector. And if you don't have that compassion, if you don't have that empathy when you interact with the people, obviously people won't be in a position to connect with you. So one of the most common ways in which you can connect with people is by having a good greeting protocol that you might be having within the company. It might be like saying good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on time of the day, or it could also be saying namaste. Now, namaste can be used at any given point of time. It doesn't matter whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening. You can always say namaste, and the other person would be able to connect with you. And the best thing that you can do is every time you greet the other person, always have a smile on your face. Now, it's highly possible that, let's say, your boss shouted at you, you are having problem back at home, financial problem, personal problem, work related problem, staff is not around, and you're doing double duty. No matter what the problem is, the important thing is you need to have a smile on your face. Whatever negativity you have or whatever negativity you are experiencing, that negativity shouldn't pass on to the patient and the family members who come to the unit. Now, that's the most important thing. And this is where the important aspect is to regulate your emotions. Now, when I say to regulate your emotions, essentially it means that you have to be mindful about your own emotion. And if you are able to be mindful about your own emotion, it becomes much easier to be aware about what's happening in and around. So when you are interacting with the patient or the family member, have a smile on your face. Don't look at your watch. Don't look around. Pay attention. Maintain eye contact. Stand in a certain way which is appropriate. And often what happens is when we are there at the unit level or in the hospital, we might be having our own shift timings. We might be having lunch breaks. We might be having other breaks. And during such times, when somebody would come and approach us, our priority should always be there for the patient. Always remember that each one of us who is working within the hospital domain industry, each person is directly or indirectly responsible for looking after the overall patient's well-being. So although you might not be a doctor, you might not be in the nursing department, but still each person is there within the unit to ensure that proper care is provided to the patients. Now replace your negative emotions with positive emotions, and this is where your regulation comes into play. How well you're able to regulate your emotions. And as I mentioned earlier, every time you are, let's say, having a negative thought or you're not in the right frame of mind, the best thing that you can do is smile. To smile and to speak, it will always create a positive tone. The other person would be able to feel good about your voice. You'll always sound very warm, optimistic. And essentially, when you smile and after that, when you speak, the advantage is whatever negative thought or whatever, let's say, problem you had some time back, which you were thinking about, that worry, that problem will go away. It's like the way we reboot our laptop or computer, or even these days we reboot our smartphone. So if the smartphone hangs and then you're not able to use it, the best thing is you restart it. So something similar, if you're going through a rough phase, especially when you're there at the unit and you're interacting with patients and other people, ensure that under no circumstances your negativity passes on to them. And for that, have a smile on your face. It always works. Let's understand one activity wherein you can power focus yourself in terms of understanding what would be the best way to practice empathy at workplace. Now, in terms of our processes, depending on the department or sub department wherein we work, we would be in a position to know what are the broader steps, what are the steps to be taken so as to provide service to a particular patient. But in spite of knowing everything, in spite of having a checklist, in spite of having proper detailed presentations, often the problem lies in terms of implementation. At that particular point of time, we are not able to implement, because often what happens is every day, the work that we do day in, day out, often at times what happens is we get so used to the process because of which we're not able to think through. And as a result, the problem is we keep doing the things that we have been doing day in, day out, which probably may not be the right ones. And this is where this particular activity can essentially help participants. So, what you have to do is look at this particular box. Now, the people who are there on this particular call, I'll request you all, you can use the chat box and you can type in what's the color of this particular box or the rectangle that you see on the screen. Probably some people might say it's red, some people might say cherry red, some people might come with other variants of red color. Everything is fine. Now, what you have to do is observe this particular color for 5 seconds. Try observing this particular color for 5 seconds. And once you are done, what you have to do is close your eyes and try visualizing the color. So this particular slide is intentionally kept blank so that you can close your eyes and you can visualize. Try visualizing the red color. Now, the ones who are able to visualize the red color, what you all can do is you can type as yes in the chat box. After you visualize the red color, try visualizing what are the broader steps, what are the key things related to the work, the department that you're part of, wherein you work, which essentially and ideally you should be doing so as to create positive work experience for each and every person who's working within your department. And also, it should create a positive experience for the patient and the attendants or the family members. So visualize about all the steps. So like let's say for example, you are in front office department. Your job is to welcome the patients, you provide them information, you guide them to various departments. So every time a patient comes in front of you, do you have a smile on your face? Do you greet them? So these are the protocols that you need to follow. So likewise, think about all the things that essentially, ideally, you should be doing so that the patient's experience is always positive and they experience empathy from us. So when you think about all these possibilities, whatever steps you essentially should be doing, those are the good things that ideally you should be doing. But if you're not doing, then that becomes a red flag. So whatever things you are not doing as part of your work process, visualize them and add them to this red color box. Try and associate this particular color. If you're not comfortable with red color, you can use any other color of your choice, but try tagging or associating a particular color and the things that you're not doing. It could also be a competency. So if you're not able to do a particular thing in terms of a work, approach the training department, approach L&D department, approach your HOD who can guide you, who can train you on that particular element, and you can be trained, and then you can start showing improvement. For all the other soft skill related aspects, especially in terms of greeting protocol, grooming protocol, you can visualize the red color box and you associate the things that you don't do it. Now, when you do that, the advantage is you know the things that you're not doing, ideally, which you should be doing. Now, the next step that we have to do out here is observe this green color box. Now, again, some people might say that this is light green, this is dark green. Doesn't matter what the shade is, assume it's green. And again, if you're not comfortable with this particular color, you can choose a color of your choice when you do this activity at your own level. Now, what you have to do out here is, again, the same process. Look at this particular color for 10 to 15 seconds. And once you're done with that, close your eyes. And now think about all the good things that you are aware about your process. all the good things related to work that you can really implement, all the checklist related pointers at workplace that you are proud of, which you are able to do, probably you would have received feedback from the patient, which was very positive. So that way you should be able to visualize and you should be able to tag to green color. Now, on this particular slide, you can see there are two colors next to each other. On the left-hand side, we have red color. On the right-hand side, we have green color. So in the earlier step, what we did was we identified those red flags or those areas of work that essentially we are mindful about and we are not doing to the fullest capacity, or maybe we are not aware about certain things. So those red flags or those areas of work that we are not aware of, we were not able to do, or nobody told us, or let's say we need to improve ourselves, no matter what it is, those things are there in the red zone. The green zone reflects things that you are good at, things that you are really proud of, things that have been working for you. It could be patient feedback. And often what happens is within the department, we might be having people who support each other, and some of the people might be acting as mentors. So all the good things that you are able to do, associate them with the green color. Now, the next step that you have to do is once you have identified the red flag zone and the green flag zone, you need to really focus, understand what you can solve at your level. So let's say in terms of grooming, if you know what grooming is all about, get in touch with the L&D department. If you don't know about the process related knowledge which is there in the red zone, reach out to your departmental people. It could be your HOD, it would be your mentor, it would be in charge, anybody. Any other thing in terms of how to interact with patient, how to greet them, how to talk to them, how your body language should be, all those things which are there in your red zone essentially should move to the green zone. So when you do this particular activity, the important thing is at your own individual level, you're able to understand where essentially you stand. And broadly, these things would be the things which patient would be looking out for in terms of whether they feel that the place when they're getting treated are people really concerning about them. And that's where the concept of empathy comes into picture. If people don't feel connected with us, if patients don't feel connected with us, they would feel that we are having apathy towards them or we are sympathetic towards them, but not in terms of being empathizing towards them. And this is where the crux of the matter lies. With that note, I would like to stop my presentation out here. I hope people would be practicing this particular exercise going ahead. And you can use any color of your choice. You can also use a book or a diary wherein you can write down the things that you would like to change in terms of the good things and the improvement areas. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much, Amit. It was wonderful. We also got a chance to close for eyes for 5 seconds. So I think thinking that's very, very important. I think striking the balance between the human, the technology part as well as the human intervention, that is very, very important. I always remember one story like Dr. Jyoti was telling, in Apollo Ahmedabad, there was one patient on Janmashtami day, the Lord Krishna birthday, there was a fancy dress competition, and a mother taking his son who's in class fourth to a school in a fancy dress competition. So he was wearing a Lord Krishna attire with the flute and a mukut and everything and all. And she was on a two-wheeler and they met an accident. And he fell down and there was some stitches here. They brought to the hospital. So, and both were sad, mother because son was not well. And the son, he was so excited. He don't know what has happened to him, but he was excited in that fancy dress, the Lord Krishna dress and all. So the stitch was done. They were there in the hospital for a day or so. And to believe it, the nurses, the doctors, the patient care attendants, they, in order to make them happy, they show the empathetic attitude. They brought a dress. They small dresses of Lord Krishna with a flute, with a butter and all those things, and they have done all those things there and clicking a photograph. And I was surprised to know when parents came back and they was talking about, they were very, very happy. So I think if you connect the patient on these lines, I think it makes a difference. And post COVID era, I think healthcare is using various technologies, but I think there should be a balance between technology and a human interface. And I think communication always wins. We have so many modes of communication, but I think doing the right communication in the right way, that is very, very important. So what we talk in healthcare is communicating for safety involve the accurate and careful exchange of information about a patient care between the clinicians, member of a multidisciplinary team, and between clinician and patient and family and carer. Thank you very much for this wonderful session. And I think I'll just see if at all some questions are there. Questions are always welcome in this forum. And I think we should give a big round of applause to our speakers who have taken us through the patient care journey through human-centered way. Thank you very much. And I request one and all, to become a part of the Asia's biggest patient safety forum tomorrow in Bangalore at Sheraton. And if some questions are there, so we can always take. Okay. So what kind, I have one question for you, Dr. Jyoti. How you see to that this human center quality is happening across all your centers, all your units? What is the way? You use technology, you go for a round, you use CCTVs. I don't know. I'm just asking.
Yeah. So there are a few small strategies we try out, and I would like to share probably one or two. The first one, like we say, like sweet nothing talk, because the employees are very stressed at the ground level, as much as the senior leaders are stressed in the boardroom for their building their business and growing their business. So the employees actually should relate and understand that the leaders are empathetic with them. For this, we started two initiatives. One is iKind. This iKind is like we prepare something, a card or some expression, and we identify and we observe a small act of kindness if they are able to express. We go right to them and then give them wherever they are working. That made a great ripple, and we named it as like a November month is for the iKind month. So this actually made them happy at the ground level. Second thing is like I personally invented something called a sweet nothing promise. Normally in any organization, whatever the level may be, right from CEO down line, the immediate reporting boss is calling us for something. None of us will think they're calling for something nice, or probably they're calling to praise us or probably to pat us on our back. Always we think, what is that is going to happen? Is there anything that I not comply with, or probably there is something that I missed out? So in order to close that, especially from the frontline workers, especially nurses, so we tried a mechanism called sweet nothing. Normally, when two people, when they are close to each other, like schoolmates, like when you spend one day at time to what is the objective you met, there is nothing to say. But if you ask them, were you very happy? They say yes. Very happy, very contented, look forward for the same hour or same time again. So same
Right.
way, what we thought was like sweet nothing rounds, going around, even if we find something wrong happening, unless until it is endangering patient, we would refrain and then talk to them in terms of like look into them and see whether their lips are dry, whether their bottles are enough water is there, whether they had. We also look into another thing, empathy. I would like to stress upon here. Doctors, nurses, and others, they do a PP dance. You know what is PP dance? They want to pass urine because their bladder is full, but the next work is ahead there. Okay, I need to attend to this patient. I have to give this medicine. I have to do this process. I have to meet another patient. So we hold on. And you say urinary tract infection among nurses and such healthcare professionals, even because of this. So we wanted to put a hold on a PP dance, and then we asked them like, okay, what did you do? You want me to take care of something so that you can go and or some sort of empathy, like when they are standing a long time in the theater, ask them like their experience, like they don't want to sit for some time. In some hospitals, we don't even provide chairs for especially in that. So the sweet nothing rounds basically connects people. So they look forward. And in our rounds, we also see if one professional is not rightly connecting with another professional, maybe raising voice or not connecting well, then we go and stand there to say that what's happening? Can we help you? So then we are able to support both sides without hurting anyone. So in this case, people look forward for leaders. So this is
Yes.
called a sweet nothing rounds.
Right, great. And one question for Amit from your side, since you manage across region, Karnataka, Maharashtra, and entire Estel Labs, so you see the regional and culture differences also why you train people, and you see, say, your, human psychology and organization behavior among your human center quality. You want to say something on this?
Absolutely. So as you rightly mentioned, Neeraj, what happens is in India, there is a lot of diversification. We are known for our culture. So every state and within the state, even the different districts and the regions, they have their own flavor, be it in terms of food or the way people like to experience and celebrate the festivities. So especially when we talk about the organization and when we want people to be aligned, considering the vision, mission, core values of the company, it's important to have a global approach, but at the same time, we also have a local approach. So when
Right.
we have initiatives in terms of training programs, we try and ensure that there is a local flavor associated with the thing. And also, if we look at the culture within each of the units, not just our company, but any company for that matter, in each of the state wherein they operate, the local language will always have a strong flavor. The local culture will always have a strong flavor. Although we say that English being the business communication, but the local language will always play a strong role. And that's where celebrating the local culture also helps. And essentially, when we have our presentations, when we have the slides, or especially when we start the communication, to have one or two words that you can speak in the local language, especially if you don't know the language, it helps you to create that connect, and
Yes,
that
you're right.
automatically creates a rapport. And once you
Yes.
have, and once you have that rapport, it becomes much easier to
Easier,
share
yeah.
your ideas, your thoughts, and people feel acceptable at that particular point of
Yes.
time.
True.
So I think it's a very important point, as you rightly
Yeah.
expressed.
Thank you very much. I think wonderful. I think your presentations fantastically, and thank you for the delegates who are seeing you in this subcontinent. And I request everybody looking forward to see you tomorrow at Bangalore. And mandate this conference is not virtual. Physically be present there to see what is happening into the patient safety forum. Thank you very much, and namaste.
Thank you, Dr. Neeraj. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Dr. Dheeraj. Thank you,
Thank
Amit.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Jyoti. Thank you for this opportunity.
Wonderful. Looking forward to meet you again. Very
Thank you.
nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Great. I think it went well. Good one. One flow. Thank you very much. I think we will able to see you in Bangalore to